It happened at 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time. The night sky lit up in silence, just a shimmering halo over the edge of the atmosphere, beautiful and deadly. For a second, the world didn't understand what it was looking at. Then came the burnouts, thousands of satellites blinking out like dying stars. Communications dropped. GPS went dark. The stock markets never opened that morning. Air traffic froze. Power grids flickered. The world had been sucker punched. I was in a bunk room in what was left of the Wyoming Air Command Center. I'd just finished a double-shift rerouting drone patrols over the Pacific when the floor trembled. No explosion, just a low vibration in my spine. Unnatural. Alarms followed, then that cold, robotic voice. Orbital breach detected. Level 0 threat. All units mobilize. Level 0. The term hadn't been used in real-world protocol since the Cold War, when nukes were the only thing we feared. It wasn't a nuke. It was worse. A singularity bomb, fired from a cruiser hidden behind the dark side of the moon. Alien-made, high precision, not aimed at civilians, no. They were smarter than that. They aimed at our systems, our infrastructure. They wanted us blind, deaf, and dumb. And for a few hours, they got their wish. I'm Lieutenant Dane Mercer. I used to run orbital patrol shifts and waste half my life buried in defense reports no one read. I'm nobody special. No medals. No tragic past. Just a man who watched Earth get punched in the gut and decided he wasn't going to forgive. By noon that day, we knew who did it. The Loran Dominion. In all their silver-tongued diplomacy, they claimed it was an accidental discharge during a deep space drill. An energy test gone wrong. They offered condolences. Assistant even blamed their own rogue commander, a name we never got. They thought they could spin it. Tell that to the 27 astronauts burned alive in low orbit. Tell that to the hospitals that lost power mid-surgery. Tell that to the parents who couldn't call their kids, or the pilots who dropped out of radar and slammed into mountains. The president tried to go on air, tried to calm the world. "We will not escalate," she said. "We will investigate." That was the line. But by the time her broadcast hit the airwaves, rebroadcast through backup terrestrial towers, we already knew. Earth wasn't going to forgive. Not this time. I met Commander Briggs later that afternoon. He wasn't wearing brass or metals, just a leather coat, stubble, and eyes that looked 10 years older than the rest of his face. He didn't talk much, just handed me a file. "Read it," he said. "You're part of it now." It was called Operation Dust Reckoning. No press, no signatures, no traceable chain of command. Just an old-school, boots-on-the-ground retaliation unit. Not a war, because that'd take too long. Not sanctions, because that'd do nothing. This was surgical, personal. There were 30 of us at first. Ex-military, engineers, intelligence analysts, orbital mechanics. Anyone who knew how to find the Loran's fleet and hit it where it hurt. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were survivors with teeth. My role. I was good with tech, drones, and systems nobody used anymore. Cold War junk that didn't rely on satellite networks. I could fly blind, navigate with analog, and pull readings off old magnetic tapes if I had to. We started underground, literally, in old missile silos and decommissioned bunkers scattered across the Rockies. I worked with Daniels, a former DARPA drone pilot who hadn't smiled since his wife was on a transcontinental flight that vanished over the Atlantic that morning. He didn't talk about it, just worked, just flew. There wasn't much talk between any of us, just a silent rage, a grief turned into code, schematics, plans. We stopped being people. We became tools, instruments of something cold and focused. Earth was done being diplomatic. And when we finally found the ship that fired that bomb, still hiding behind a debris field near Saturn, we didn't call it in. We didn't wait for authorization. We loaded the old warhead ourselves, A kinetic rod, tungsten-based, wrapped in depleted uranium, a relic of Earth's first attempt at space dominance. No explosion, just physics, just gravity. Daniels pressed the launch button, didn't blink, didn't even breathe. The cruiser didn't explode. It disintegrated. No warnings, no speeches, just justice, falling at 12 kilometers per second. That's when it started. They thought Earth was just another planet with too many governments and not enough spine. But they forgot one thing. We may fall, but we never, ever forgive. They called it retaliation. We called it a warning. After the Saturn hit, things escalated fast. The Loran Dominion's High Council sent a diplomatic distress signal to Earth's Joint Command, demanding an inquiry, screaming about barbarism and unjustified aggression. Their cruiser wasn't supposed to be touched, they said. It was a science vessel. Yeah, science. The kind that vaporized our orbital grid and left 300 million people scrambling in the dark. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. We didn't reply. Earth stayed silent. Silence is a kind of power, I learned. It makes your enemies guess, overthink, panic. And while they were scrambling to make sense of the wreckage floating around Saturn's orbit, we were already moving to the next phase. Briggs put us back in the air. This time, deep space insertion. Old stealth tech from Earth's abandoned Black Nebula program. Sublight, thermally invisible, non-reflective hulls. Cloaked in the vacuum, undetectable by anything the Lorans could scan without triggering interstellar treaties. We weren't going to just destroy their fleet. We were going to humiliate them. They hit us from orbit. We were going to hit their capital from inside. The ship was called Wraith 9, a coffin-shaped black dart with barely enough room for 4 men. No seats, just straps and silence. I rode with Briggs, Daniels, and an old demolitions guy named Trent, who smelled like burnt solder and rage. He didn't talk, just slept with his eyes open and mumbled chemical equations in his sleep. We launched from a dark site in the Bering Strait, piggybacking off a meteor storm, disguised as space dust. The first 3 hours were the longest of my life. No lights, no sound, just the ache in your joints and the knowledge that if one thing went wrong, just one, we'd be nothing but frozen meat drifting through black silence. But we made it, docked on a Loran fuel station orbiting their second colony moon, Zeller Prime. Lorans are arrogant creatures, tall, silver-skinned, all logic and protocol. They believed in contracts, honor, debate. What they didn't believe in was raw vengeance. They were about to learn. We slipped in during a shift change. Daniels hacked the entry node using a pulse repeater. Trent laid down 2 shaped charges just in case. Briggs didn't speak a word. He just moved, like he'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe he had. Inside, it was bright and sterile. Their corridors looked more like a hospital than a military station. White floors, blue ambient lights, the occasional Loran in a gray suit with a datapad, too busy to notice 4 ghosts walking past with murder in their eyes. We didn't kill anyone. Not yet. That wasn't the mission. Our objective was Data Core 6, a central hub with encrypted transmissions between Loran Fleet Command and their civilian council. If we could prove the orbital bomb was deliberate, Earth wouldn't need diplomacy anymore. We'd have just cause. The core was behind a reinforced gate with biometric locks. Daniels got us through. I still don't know how. Just wires, heat pads, and a 10-second window where I swore my heart stopped. We didn't expect what we found inside. Logs, orders, transmissions, hundreds of them. Dated weeks before the accidental discharge. Simulations of Earth's orbital collapse, civilian casualty projections, and at the bottom of one sequence, an approval code from a Loran High Counselor named Sale Threx. It wasn't rogue. It wasn't a mistake. It was a test. They wanted to see how Earth would react under pressure, how fast we could recover. whether we were still the emotional species they deemed too volatile for galactic leadership. They bombed us not to destroy us, but to study us. They wanted to break us like a lab rat. Briggs stared at the screen for a long time. Then he turned and walked out. No rage, just that cold, distant look, like something deep inside him had finally snapped. "Upload everything," he said. "We're leaking this to the whole damn galaxy." I started the uplink. Daniels kept lookout. Trent tapped his detonator with a shaky finger. That's when the lights went red. Sirens. Lauren security. The soft hiss of atmosphere being purged from the docking corridor. They'd found us. Daniels raised his rifle. Looks like they want a real test now. I checked the upload bar. 42%. Not enough. Briggs looked at me. "Buy us 3 minutes." I nodded, heart hammering. I didn't ask what happened after. I already knew. The Lorens had detonated a bomb over Earth to measure our limits. They were about to see what happened when Earth had no limits left. I ran. Not because I was scared, though I was, but because I was the only one who could finish the upload. The uplink relay was tied to my clearance, my biometric pattern. Without me, the data wouldn't reach Earth Command. And without that data, Earth wouldn't have proof that this wasn't just war. It was manipulation. Daniels took position by the corridor, rifle up, calm as stone. He gave me a nod as I passed. That was his goodbye. Trent stayed behind to rig a fallback charge on the mainframe in case we failed. No one told him to. He just did it, like he'd been waiting for this kind of ending his whole life. Briggs disappeared into the shadows. That man didn't need a plan. He was the plan. I followed the maintenance ducts down 2 levels, barely big enough to crawl through. The station shuddered under my knees, distant blasts and energy surges echoing like thunder through metal bones. My fingers bled from scraping against steel. Sweat poured into my eyes. I kept crawling. Halfway through, I heard a noise behind me. Metal boots, not Lauren guards. They moved too fast. These were enforcers, enhanced, zero emotion, bred for suppression. The Dominion didn't use them unless things had gone completely to hell. They weren't here to arrest us. They were here to erase us. I kicked out the vent panel and dropped into the server control bay. A Lauren tech stood there, young, confused, holding a scanner. He blinked at me like I was some animal that didn't belong in his clean, structured world. I didn't hesitate. I slammed the butt of my pistol into his temple and let him crumple. I keyed into the console, connected the uplink, and started the emergency burst. Full bandwidth, no encryption. Let the whole damn universe see. I watched the upload crawl upward, 62%, 63%, while my heartbeat rattled in my ears. Then the doors blew open. 2 enforcers came in, plasma rifles raised, no warning, no emotion. I dove behind a terminal just as the first blast melted through the console I'd been using seconds ago. Shards of molten metal sprayed my leg. I screamed without meaning to. They moved fast. Too fast. The Dominion had turned warfare into a science, but they didn't factor in one thing. We fight ugly. I threw a pulse grenade into the air, not at them, but at the ceiling. The detonation took out the coolant line, flooding the room in freezing vapor. Visibility dropped to 0. Their optics faltered for 2 seconds. That's all I needed. I fired 3 shots. Center mass. The first enforcer dropped like a brick. The second turned, adaptive shield flickering, but I tackled him before he could react. We hit the ground hard. He clawed at my face, metal fingers tearing skin. I shoved my sidearm under his jaw and fired twice. Silence. I staggered to my feet, bleeding, lungs full of cold mist. The server bay was on fire, and the upload was at 92%. I dragged myself to the console, fingers numb, vision blurry. 98%. I could hear boots in the distance again. More coming. I had no more grenades. No more tricks. 99%. A hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun, ready to fight. Briggs. He looked like hell, blood down his side, face bruised, eyes burning. You get it out? He asked. I pointed to the screen. 1% left. He stood guard, rifle aimed at the door. Then let's make this count. The moment the progress bar hit 100%, the console blinked and cut to black. Uplink complete. Data dispersed. Proof sent. The Dominion's lie, its manipulation, its calculated assault, was no longer a secret. I looked at Briggs. We done? He didn't smile. Just getting started. We torched the server room behind us and made for evac. Daniels didn't make it. Neither did Trent. Their sacrifices gave Earth a shot. And when we reached the extraction corridor, just before boarding the return drone, we saw something I'll never forget. Lorans, civilians, workers, all huddled behind blast doors, watching us, not with fear, not with hate, with shame. Because they'd seen the truth, too. The data was spreading, across ships, stations, colonies. The Dominion hadn't just attacked a planet. They'd awakened something old, something cold and human. The part of us that remembers every injustice, every betrayal, every friend buried under a silent sky. We didn't land on Earth when we returned. We couldn't. Not after what we'd done. Not after what we were about to become. Briggs rerouted us to a classified facility orbiting Jupiter, one of the black sites Earth Command never publicly acknowledged. The kind of place that existed only on paper-thin whispers and conspiracy theories. No flags, no nations, just shadows in orbit. We docked in silence. No parades, no questions. A medical team waited with guns holstered and expressions dead. They patched us up like mechanics fixing broken tools. I had 7 stitches down my leg, a fractured rib, and third-degree plasma burns across my shoulder. They didn't ask how it happened, didn't care. We weren't soldiers anymore. We were evidence. By the time we arrived, the galaxy had already seen the leak. Dominion channels scrambled to deny it, calling it fabricated propaganda and human digital manipulation. But it was too late. The raw footage of the simulation files, the counselor's voice authorizing the test, it all spread like wildfire through neutral systems. Worlds that once sat on the fence began shifting away from the Dominion. And that's when Earth changed the game. See, we thought our mission was revenge, a punch back, but Earth Command had bigger plans. The leak wasn't just for justice, it was bait. Briggs sat across from me in the debriefing room, staring at a cold cup of coffee he hadn't touched. We weren't alone. General Korik, head of Earth's External Operations Division, stood by the window watching Jupiter's storms swirl. He finally turned and spoke. Gentlemen, you didn't just survive a suicide op. You started the war we needed. Briggs didn't flinch. Was always going to happen. No, Korik said. The Dominion made a mistake. They thought Earth would beg. We're going to bury them instead. And we're going to do it with their own people. That's when he dropped the files on the table. Names, bios, Lauren dissidents, scientists, officers, even civilians who had quietly begun questioning the Dominion's moral rot. Earth had been watching, listening, building alliances in silence. Operation Dust Reckoning wasn't about payback. It was a recruitment pitch. The data leak had done more than expose the Dominion. It fractured them. Protests began on their colony worlds. Ships went dark. Military commands splintered. The High Council was suddenly at war with itself. And we were being asked to go back in. Not as soldiers, as ghosts, saboteurs, advisors to the rebellion they never saw coming. I laughed when Korik said it, not because it was funny, but because it was madness. You want us to lead a civil war, inside their empire? Korik just smiled. You already started it. Might as well finish the job. Briggs nodded. What's the target? They handed him a datapad. I leaned over and felt my blood go cold. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a station. It was a child. Specifically, the heir to Counselor Threx, the architect of the orbital bombing. A 17-year-old political prodigy named Lauren Threx, currently held in a private orbital academy, heavily guarded, hidden, and cut off from the chaos. He was their symbol of unity, their future leader. Earth wanted him turned, or killed. I looked at Briggs. You seriously going to greenlight a hit on a kid? Briggs didn't answer at first. He just stared out the window at Jupiter. I don't care if he's 17 or 7, he said. If Earth wants peace, we need to take away everything that gives them hope. It wasn't justice anymore. It was extermination. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if we were still the good guys, if we ever were. But it didn't matter. The line was already crossed. The war had started the moment that bomb went off above Earth. And now we were about to teach the Dominion one final truth. You don't test humanity. Because when we're pushed far enough, we don't forgive. We don't forget. We erase. We left Jupiter in silence. Not because there wasn't anything to say, but because we already knew the truth. There was no coming back from this. Briggs didn't even give us a full team. Just 3 of us, himself, me, and a former intelligence asset named Warren, pulled straight from a prison cell in Antarctica. Word was, he used to run blackmail ops on Earth's own political elites before someone finally caught him, with his hands too deep in the wrong general's pockets. Now he was out, debt wiped clean in exchange for one last job. He had dead eyes and a cruel smile. Not the kind of man you trusted, but exactly the kind of man we needed. The mission was surgical. Infiltrate the Dominion's private orbital academy, neutralize defenses, isolate Lauren Threx, and extract him if possible. Kill him if necessary. No witnesses, no noise. The ship we flew was a Dominion-class courier. Earth had stripped it down, rewired it, and made it look like one of theirs. Warren even learned how to speak perfect High Lauren, complete with the smug accent. I don't know how. Maybe some people are just good at becoming monsters. We drifted into Dominion space, riding a ghost signal, some dead ambassador's ID tag Earth had kept in its vault. Once inside, it was like slipping into someone else's skin. The Orbital Academy, designated Haven Light, was positioned above a green moon called Virel. It looked like a cathedral in the sky, smooth, shining, perfect. No weapons on the surface, no defense grid. They didn't need any. No one would dare attack a place like this. That was their second mistake. Their first was thinking Earth had lines it wouldn't cross. We docked at Bay 7, posing as diplomatic auditors. Dominion protocol required 30 minutes of processing, which was more than enough time. Warren did most of the talking. Briggs and I played mute escorts. We passed through security with forged credentials so perfect they fooled their own AI. I couldn't help but feel sick, as the guards smiled and bowed like we were honored guests. Inside, the academy was spotless, everything white and gold. Loran children walked the halls in pristine robes, watched by tutors and security drones. It was the future they were building, arrogant, entitled, untouched by the suffering they caused. Lauren Threx was located in the central dome, top floor, isolated, of course, untouchable. Briggs and I took the elevators while Warren diverted the staff, setting off a silent lockdown protocol in the lower floors to keep them busy. Everything was clean, smooth, too smooth. The boy was waiting for us. He sat calmly in a sunlit atrium, surrounded by books, staring through the glass at the stars like he knew we were coming. He didn't flinch when we walked in, just stood, folded his hands, and looked us dead in the eyes. "I assume Earth sent you," he said. "My father warned me about this possibility." Briggs didn't speak. He raised his weapon slowly. The kid didn't even move. "If you're going to kill me, at least tell me why." I stepped between them. I don't know why. Maybe because I'd seen too much already. Maybe because I wanted him to feel it. "You know what your people did to Earth," I said. "The bomb. The cover-up. The experiments," he nodded. "Yes. I read the files before they were locked." "Then why are you so calm?" "Because it's already over," he said. That froze us. "What do you mean?" Briggs asked. Lauren tilted his head. "The High Council is dead. 2 of them assassinated this morning. 1 defected. My father vanished after ordering planetary martial law. Your data leak did more than expose a crime. It shattered the illusion of order." He stepped closer, no fear in his eyes. "You came to kill me to stop a future. But that future died before you got here. The Dominion is broken. You've already won." Briggs looked at me, then at his rifle, then back at the kid. "I don't trust him," he said. "I don't either," I replied. But the truth was in his voice. I'd seen liars. I'd heard every kind of deceit. This wasn't that. This was something worse. This was sincerity. Warren's voice crackled in our comms. "Boys, we've got a problem. External patrols are pinging our ID. We're burned." "How long?" Briggs asked. 5 minutes. Tops." Briggs stared at Lauren Threx. His jaw was clenched. His weapon lowered, just a little. "You're coming with us," he finally said. The boy nodded. "I expected you'd say that." We moved fast, back through the halls, down the silent elevator, cutting every camera on the way. The students didn't even notice us, too distracted by their perfect little lives. By the time we reached the hangar, alarms were blaring. Patrol ships circled, comms channels filled with warnings and kill orders. We barely made it into the shuttle. Warren was already firing up the launch drive. "You get the package," he shouted. Briggs shoved Lauren into a seat. "He's not what they think he is." I strapped in, blood pounding in my ears. The Academy vanished beneath us as we blasted into space, chased by half a fleet. Earth didn't forgive easily, but now we had the sun of their empire in our hands. And the game was no longer about justice, it was about leverage. Space isn't silent. Not really. Sure, the movies sell it like a vacuum of peace, but that's a lie. When you're flying at sub-light speeds, with enemy ships closing behind you and half the galaxy watching, space screams at you. Every creak in the hull, every warning beep from the nav console, it's a language of pressure, of death waiting to happen. Warren flew like a lunatic. No formation, no pattern, just hard rolls, sudden flips, skimming across asteroid debris to screw with their targeting systems. He cursed like a man possessed, sweat pouring down his face, one hand on the controls and the other gripping the edge of the console like it owed him blood. "I hope you know what the hell we're doing," he barked, not looking back. Briggs didn't answer. He just sat across from Lauren, staring at the boy, like he was trying to read a book that didn't make sense. I strapped myself in beside them, clutching the emergency override in case Warren passed out mid-dodge. The kid looked calm, too calm. "You're not afraid," I said to him. "No," he replied. "Fear would be a waste of energy right now." Briggs leaned forward. "You know why we didn't kill you?" Lauren didn't blink. "Because I'm more valuable alive." "And you're not wrong," I added. "But that doesn't mean you get to relax." The kid glanced at me. I wasn't aware I was relaxing. Warren barked a laugh from the cockpit. "He talks like a damn machine." And maybe he was. Raised in the Dominion's elite, bred to lead. He probably never felt hunger, never watched a city blackout and people die in the streets because someone thousands of kilometers above decided to push a button. But something about him. It didn't match the Dominion arrogance I expected. He had eyes that watched everything, measured everything, Not like someone entitled, more like someone calculating every move ahead. "You're quiet, Briggs," I muttered. "That a good thing or a bad thing?" Briggs finally looked at me, then at Lauren. "I don't trust him," he said, "but I think he's right about one thing." "Which is?" "The Dominion's falling apart, faster than we thought." He handed me a datapad. Dominion chatter, decrypted. Protests turning into riots. Half the outer colonies had gone dark. Military sectors refusing orders. 2 cruiser captains had already switched allegiance to Earth, offering fleet schematics in exchange for asylum. It was unraveling. Warren brought us out of evasive flight near a derelict mining station orbiting a dead rock named Cora 7. Neutral ground. No flags. No security. Just floating junk and the ghosts of a failed mineral rush from 70 years ago. "Fuel's low," Warren grunted. "We dock here, or we drift." We docked. Inside it smelled like rust and stale air. Gravity was patchy. Lights flickered. The kind of place no one cared about unless they had something to hide. Perfect for what came next. Briggs set Lauren down in a maintenance room. Small, cold, and windowless. No chains. No threats. Just a chair and a table. He pulled up a chair across from him. "We didn't bring you here to torture you," he said. "Then why?" the boy asked. "Because I want to know one thing," Briggs replied. "Do you want to lead them, or bury them?" That hung in the air for a long time. Lauren didn't answer right away. He looked down at his hands. Not soft hands. Not spoiled. Scarred along the knuckles. Trained in something. Maybe more than politics. "I was groomed to lead," he said. "But I see now. I was never meant to understand. Just obey. Smile for the cameras. Recite council doctrine. And now," he said slowly, "I think your planet wasn't Earth's only victim. The Dominion didn't just test you. They tested everyone. Us included." He met Briggs's eyes. "If I help you," he said, "it won't be to save Earth. It'll be to destroy them. All of them." Briggs nodded once. "Then we might have something." I stood in the corner, arms folded. "How do we know this isn't a trick?" Lauren looked at me. "Because if it was, I'd already be calling for help." Silence. Briggs leaned back. "We use him to get to the inner council. Their fallback bunker on Vedros Prime. He's the only one they'll still trust." "Bunker's locked behind a genetic cipher," I said. "Only bloodline can open it." Briggs smiled faintly. "Exactly." It wasn't just about survival anymore. We were going after the Dominion's throat, and we had their blood sitting in front of us. For the first time since Earth burned, I felt it. Not hope. That's a lie the weak tell themselves. No, what I felt was momentum. We weren't surviving anymore. We were hunting. We left Cora 7 under a cloak of silence. No transmissions, no nav pings, just cold drift, powered down systems, and dead air, while we let the Dominion's network lose our trail. The mining station was already being picked apart by mercenaries when we undocked. Scavengers digging through corpses of dead empires for scraps. The perfect camouflage. Briggs had a plan. Of course he did. He always had a plan. But this one was ugly, even by our standards. Vedros Prime was deep in Dominion space, far beyond any line Earth had ever officially crossed. It was the heart of their leadership's survival complex. An underground fortress designed to withstand orbital strikes, biochemical warfare, even black hole anomalies. To get in, we needed a code they couldn't fake, not just genetics, legacy trust protocols, a sealed biological handshake passed down only through direct heirs. That meant Lauren. And Lauren knew it. He didn't speak much during the journey, spent most of it in the corner of the ship, reading from a slate full of internal reports. Dominion collapse logs, leaked panic memos, betrayal lists growing longer by the hour. He watched the fall of his empire in real time, And he didn't cry, didn't shout. He just learned. It unnerved me. "You're too calm," I told him one night when we sat in the maintenance bay running drills. "Your whole world's crashing, and you're studying like it's an exam." He looked up, "Because this is the only chance I'll ever have to change what they made me into." "And what's that?" He stared at me, dead serious. "A weapon." I didn't say anything after that. Briggs met with Warren behind closed doors most of the time, drawing up the insertion strategy. When I finally saw the plan laid out on the nav screen, I nearly walked out. "You want to crash a Dominion cargo convoy and pose as the survivors?" I said. "That's suicide." Briggs nodded. "Only way to bypass orbital scans. Emergency evac protocols override standard entry." I looked at Lauren. "And what if they don't believe us?" He answered without missing a beat. "Then I die first, and you die next." Warren grinned like that idea amused him far too much. We hijacked the convoy near the Sally's Belt. 3 Dominion freighters hauling medical supplies to Vedros quarantine vaults. No guards, just low-profile autopilots. We hit them fast, silent, left the cargo floating like wreckage, and slipped into one of the ships. Then we set fire to it. Not real fire. Sensor fire. Damage markers, distress signals, plasma trail leaks. Enough for the Dominion to think it had been ambushed by rebels. We climbed into cryopods, locked Lauren in a medical stasis chamber, and triggered the beacon. 3 hours later, Dominion patrol ships showed up. They scanned us, logged Lauren's genetic ID, picked us up without question. We were just unfortunate survivors of another rebel attack. An attack that conveniently delivered their political heir right to their doorstep, exactly as planned. The descent to Vedros Prime was smoother than I expected. No interrogation, no sedatives. We were priority cargo. I guess when the roof's on fire, you don't question where the extinguisher came from. They took us deep, past layers of armored plating, miles beneath the surface, through magnetic elevators and retina gates. My pulse didn't slow the whole time. One misstep, and we'd be spaced, burned, or buried under a planet. Finally, they brought us into the heart, a circular chamber with curved steel walls and glowing violet lights. 8 figures stood there. Dominion elites, not soldiers, bureaucrats, strategists, manipulators in fine robes and expressionless faces. Lauren stood before them like a chess piece being returned to the board. "Welcome home, Airthrex," one of them said. "Your timing is fortunate." "Fortune has nothing to do with it," Lauren said. "I came to show you how far the rot has spread." Briggs and I exchanged a glance. That wasn't part of the script. The council moved closer, forming a semi-circle around him. "We have survived chaos before," one said. "The outer rebellions, the trade wars. This is no different. With you at the helm, we will—" Lauren raised his hand. Not to salute, to stop them. "No," he said. "This time, it ends." And then he did something we didn't expect. He turned toward us, nodded once, and activated the cipher gate behind him. A massive door slid open, not to a vault, to a prison, and out walked them. Dominion defectors, rebel soldiers, scientists, officers. Hundreds of them. Earth's real plan hadn't been to extract Lauren to use him. It had been to plant him. And Lauren? He hadn't been broken by the truth. He'd been reborn by it. The Dominion was collapsing, and its heir had just opened the gates from the inside. It ended in fire. Not the kind that glows warm in the night, but the kind that eats metal and bone and memory until nothing's left but silence. The Dominion bunker was supposed to be invincible. That's what they'd told themselves for decades, that behind their gates, their codes, their bloodlines, nothing could touch them. They forgot one thing. Power rots from the inside. Lauren stood at the center of the chaos he'd unleashed. Behind him, Rebel defectors stormed the chamber like wolves off the leash. The Dominion Council didn't scream, didn't beg. They just stood there, proud and hollow, watching their legacy come undone. Not by Earth, not by war, by their own. Briggs raised his rifle but didn't fire. There was no need. The rebels didn't show mercy, and we weren't here to stop them. I stood beside him, watching the smoke rise from what used to be the control deck. Security drones flared, burst, and dropped in sparks. Power conduits overloaded and lit the ceiling in flashes of blue and red. The rebels had planned this for years. They just needed someone to open the door. They needed Lauren, and Earth gave him to them. "Is this what you wanted?" I asked him as he walked past me, his robes torn, blood on his hands. Not his own. He didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, "No." But it's what was necessary. A line, clean and cold. I hated how easy it sounded coming from him. "You really going to lead them?" Briggs asked. "These rebels, these people your father used to hunt?" Lauren looked back at us. "I'm not going to lead them." "Then what are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure no one ever leads like them again." He turned and walked toward the main console, the heart of the Dominion's planetary control network. And without a word, he wiped it. Years of power, access codes, military command chains, surveillance data, deleted. Briggs blinked. "Jesus, you could have ruled 10 systems with that intel." Lauren shrugged. "That's the problem. He wasn't interested in ruling. He was interested in erasing." Warren finally reappeared from the side corridor, a bloody grin on his face and 2 Dominion badges in his fist. "All clear," he said. "They never saw it coming, like watching statues melt." "No regrets?" I asked him. Warren laughed. "I've done worse for less." Briggs walked to the center of the room and picked up one of the fallen counselor insignias. Polished gold with a black diamond center. He held it up to the flickering lights, then let it drop to the floor. "It's over," he said. Not a celebration. A verdict. Operation Dust Reckoning had started with a lie in orbit. A bomb meant to test Earth's breaking point. A bomb that killed, silenced, crippled, and made the galaxy think Earth would either fold or kneel. Instead, we came back with something else. Proof. Rage. A son of the Empire in our hands. And now, we had buried the Dominion's bloodline in its own bunker. Not for power, for memory. We left Vedros Prime through the maintenance tunnels, rebels securing every hallway behind us. Briggs walked first. I followed, carrying the only remaining copy of Lauren's confession, a message recorded in the control chamber before he deleted everything else. It wasn't for Earth Command. It was for the galaxy. He looked into the camera and said one thing. "The Dominion taught us that silence keeps power. Earth taught us that silence can become a scream. This isn't your empire anymore. It's ours." By the time we reached the extraction bay, Earth's Black Flag fleet was already waiting. Unmarked ships with no names, no call signs, just hulls designed to disappear the moment the job was done. Warren split off from us, grinning. "I got paid," he said. "Time to vanish." Briggs looked at him, but didn't stop him. "You vanish too well, Warren." Warren winked. "You say that like it's a problem." He was gone before we turned around. Lauren didn't leave with us. He stayed behind. Said the new movement needed a face they couldn't trace to Earth. Said he had one more speech to make. One more thing to burn. We didn't argue. Briggs and I sat in silence as our shuttle pulled away from Vedros, the planet slowly shrinking into a blue ember below. Fires burned across its surface, the last gasp of an empire that thought it could play God. The stars around us stayed silent. But we knew. They were watching, waiting. Because Earth didn't forgive. And now the galaxy had learned something they could never forget. If you test humanity, You better be ready for what comes after.